In this video, we're going to get our development environment set up, and we're going to get those initial static HTML pages into our development environment so we can see where we're starting from. There are many ways to get a PHP development environment set up. I'm going to use the kit that I developed, and you can find that kit in my GitHub repos. So it's under rcraven/kit. It's pretty easy to get started here. It's going to scroll down. There's a couple of instructions here. We've already made the directory. So over here I have PHP Storm set up, and I have this PHP rate this pick directory, which I have a terminal window open here. So if I print this current directory, this is on my desktop in some temporary folder here. So to get started with the kit, after you create the directory and you get a terminal window open in this directory, the next thing is you're going to clone the kit. I'm going to copy and paste that. I clone this in, and now what you'll see is you have another directory inside of your PHP directory, your project. I'm going to change directory into that infrastructure, just like it says here. I'm not going to do this on my machine because I've already done this, but what this does is you run this install script and it adds a kit alias. So what you'll see me do over here is I'm going to use kit commands to manage my environment. And under the hood, what you're going to have is you're going to have a Docker environment. So there are a couple of prerequisites here that you want to have the Docker environment installed. I like to rename this tab just so I can keep them clear. I'm going to rename this to infra, and then that way I can have another tab open later on for my code. Okay, so the next step is we're going to run kit new. Now when I run kit new, there's a bunch of templates in here. If you just do kit new by itself, you're going to see all the different templates that the kit supports. So you can easily create a new PHP application, which is what we're going to do. It's just going to be empty hello world application when you run this. So let's get that. So we're going to run kit new PHP. For the name of the application, we're going to call this rate this pick. Then it's going to give you an opportunity to start from an existing repo. We do have an existing repo for this project. If we pull this down, which we will, it's going to pull down the latest version. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and here get the HTTPS route here. So I'll copy and paste that. I'm going to put this here. We'll hit enter. So that's going to ask you some questions about the ports that you want to expose. The kit allows you to have multiple projects, and the typical port for the web are port 80 and port 443. Now, if you're doing a lot of development and have a bunch of different projects, they all can't be on the same port. So this is going to allow you to have different projects on different ports. I'm going to just keep the defaults for this one. So 8001, 44301, 33061 is going to be my database that's exposed. So we're going to have a database available to us. Redis we'll keep. Database user, we're just going to keep that. We're going to keep the password as secret. Same thing here, the root password secret. And then it's going to go ahead and go through all the motions it takes to actually create this project. So it's going to clone that repo. It's going to run Composer install and Composer update and all of those things. So we'll just let it do its thing here. All right, so it's finished up. It automatically tries to open up the browser for you. One of the steps it also tries to do is it tries to update your host files so that this domain, rate_this_pick_dev.local, is in your host file, and it's mapped to 127.0.0.1. As I mentioned, it pulled down that Git repo so we can see all the code here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get this environment set up, and I want you to be able to run the final product. Then we'll take it all the way back to the beginning, and in the next video we'll start incrementally improving everything. So let me drop in a .env file. That should show up here. Just look at the .env file real quick. If you followed the same setup as I did, so you can see at the bottom, if you accepted these ports, that's your username. And if you set your application called rate_this_pick, that should be all the same. If you change your application, you're going to want to change this prefix. If you change your user and password, change those. If I refresh, I'm still going to get an error because the database hasn't been created or seeded yet. So let's go ahead and we'll fix that error after it happens. And just to make this as easy as possible, I'm going to open in the index.php file here, and I'm going to use the database, and we're going to migrate, and then we are going to use the database again, and we are going to seed. So if I run this, it'll go through these migrations and seed this, and then I'll have my initial application up and running. And of course, I'm going to remove these two lines because we do not need them. So again, this is the completed code. This is where we're going to land, but I wanted you to be able to get everything running right away. So in my environment now, I like to open up another terminal session, and I'm going to switch over to the code directory, and then I'm going to switch into this rate this pick. You can see it right here. So here's the code rate this pick. That's where all my code is going to be. And this is the GitHub repo that we just cloned for this environment. Now, if we take a look at the environment, there's a bunch of tags. And I want to go all the way back to the beginning, and this is the tag that we're going to get right here. So we want to check out this tag. So we can do that with our git command. We can run git commands in here. So we're going to git check out tags / we want this tag. So it's v1-static-html. And at this point, all of our code is gone. We still have the .env file. We just added that. That's not a problem. We can leave that here. If you look at the public though, now we're down to 3 static files and a script. And so this is our starting point. If we come over to our application and I refresh this now, it should look a bit different. So now we have a single static page. This is all hard coded, and we have an upload photo page and we have an about page, but we don't have our main matrix anymore that shows all the photos. And if you look at the code, this is where we're starting from. These are all .html files. These are all static HTML files. So if we take a look at the index page, which is what you're seeing here, and I'm going to go ahead and we'll just make the application smaller. It doesn't need to be so big. And we will make our coding window a little bit bigger, make that smaller. So if we just browse through our index page here, at the very top, you can see that we're importing Tailwinds. And again, this is not how you're supposed to import it for production, but for this development environment, this is totally fine. We'll just use the content delivery system here. There's a navigation bar at the very top, and you can see that nav starts here. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse out the nav. So all of this is nav. Then there's a header, which is this little section right here. Let's go ahead and make these just a little bit. There you go. So that header is right here. It says rate this pic. All hard coded, so nothing's dynamic. And then this main section here, this is where the photo exists. You can see the photo. You can see the summary section right here, where it has a photo summary. You can see all the reviews. And then at the very bottom, there's a section for the form. And then we have the ending of the HTML page. Now, if I look over at the upload page, now I've opened upload also. Let's just do a quick review here. We can see it again. It's a static HTML page. It has to have everything there for it to work. At the very top, we see that nav again. So these two pages have that common code. It's nav. There's also a page header. So that's common in both of these. Then there's the main. After that, this is where the content gets a bit different. So that's all the content for the upload. There's an upload form in here. This is the unique content for the page. And then there's the page ending. Same thing with the about page. If we look at the about, it has a lot of common code. It has the nav in it, has the header in it, and then in main, this is where the unique stuff is for the page itself. So there is a little bit of JavaScript, not much. The page, it's built with Tailwinds, and it's responsive, so it gets to be like that size, but then when we get down to the mobile, it switches to the hamburger menu, and that JavaScript makes this function here. So we're not going to talk a lot about the HTML and the JavaScript. This course is primarily focused on PHP, so a lot of the HTML and the JavaScript, we're just going to assume it magically appeared. So if you go to Tailwinds, you're going to see their documentation. It's pretty thorough. You can learn about Tailwinds there. We'll not talk about that much in this course. There is a plus area. So if you explore, for example, UI blocks, here's application UI, and you go in here and you can look for application shells, which is the main nav, the title bar. You can see the exact template that I'm using here. So this is where I started Rate This Picture from. So you can see all of this nav bar, this header, this little area over here where people are logged in at. You can see it starts here. And I've grabbed this template, and then I added individual code for all the different pages. So that's how it started off. That's how I built the static HTML. All right, so at this point, we've got these static pages. In the next video, we're going to start making this a dynamic website. So we'll see you then.